This is Matthew Cratter from Trade University, and today I want to talk about how to spy on someone else's Bitcoin. If you've bought Bitcoin, if you've spent Bitcoin, you can be sure that this lecture will apply to you. So make sure you watch this all the way to the end because I think you're going to be surprised by some of the findings. So here's an example. Let's say that I do some online work for you and you pay me by sending Bitcoin to a Bitcoin address that I control. It's one of these BC1 addresses that I've listed here. I just took this off the blockchain. As you'll see, this is not an address that I control. But let's say you send me some Bitcoin there. And let's say that I'm very sloppy and I always reuse that same Bitcoin address with everyone. Let's say I give it to my boss and he pays me in Bitcoin to that same Bitcoin address. I buy Bitcoin on Coinbase. I send it, I withdraw it and send it to the same address. And let's say that I even do some spending. Maybe I pay some of my bills using the same Bitcoin address. Now, the dangerous thing about this is you can now go to any block explorer. So let's say you're the one I did some work for, you paid me with Bitcoin, I give you this address, and what you then do is you go and spy on me. You go to oxt.me, I'll link to this in the description notes below. You paste the Bitcoin address in here, you click search, and all of a sudden you see that I am an extremely wealthy person. I've been passing 388,000 Bitcoin through this account. So here's the address. This is oxt.me. You can also go to mempool.space, type in the address up here, and you will see the total Bitcoin that I've received. I've received over 388,000 Bitcoin. Again, this is not me. This is almost certainly an exchange. As we'll see, I've received 388,000 Bitcoin. I've sent 380,000 Bitcoin approximately. I still control about 8,000 Bitcoin in this account, has a current value, market value of 461 million. So think about the implications of this. Let's also go back here. We can see that I use this address also, as I said, for my spending. So you went to mempool.space, you see that I own over $400 million worth of Bitcoin, and then you look at how I've been spending it. So here's an example. Here's the same address over here on the left. This is an input to a transaction. And again, this is the Bitcoin blockchain. Everything is completely transparent. So this is the money, the UTXO, or the little piece of Bitcoin that I decide to spend. And I send it to this address. This is the, so this side is the inputs. These are the outputs of the transaction. Some of it gets sent, 0.015 gets sent to this address. And then the change goes back to the same address. In this case, we can see that it ends in the ZLU. It's the same address. So this is what's called a simple spend. What I'm doing in this transaction, if it were me, and again, it's not, is I'd be sending some Bitcoin to this address and then getting the change back at the same address. So not only do you know, because I reuse this address, you know how much Bitcoin I own at this address, which is a huge amount. You also can see my spending habits at this address. So let's say I'm spending to this address, which is this one right here, the 3KDEQ. And let's say I do a little online research and I discover that address is linked to a well-known dark web market for something illegal, maybe for weapons or drugs or something else that might be illegal where you are. Now, simply because I did work for you, I reused a Bitcoin address, you now know by just looking up this address on the blockchain using a block explorer, you know that I own over $400 million worth of Bitcoin. And you also know, because you've done a little research, that I like to buy things on the dark web. This is one reason you want to never reuse a Bitcoin address, even if you're not doing anything illegal, and I never do anything illegal. Even if you're not doing anything illegal, you don't want to give people this kind of information. And so whenever you receive Bitcoin, you should always let your wallet generate a fresh address every time. And most Bitcoin wallets do this now automatically. If you're using something like a paper wallet, that means you're probably been reusing the same address. This is another problem with using paper wallets. Here's how Trezor generates a fresh address for every transaction, and all the major software wallets, hot wallets, and cold wallets, hardware wallets will do this as well. So now let's up the ante a little bit. Let's say that I open up an account with Coinbase, which I have done. and I go through what's called KYC. This is something that's regulated and forced on Coinbase by the U.S. government. It's forced on all the brokers. If you open up an account with Schwab or TD Ameritrade or Robinhood or whomever, you have to provide all your personal information in almost every country, I imagine at this point, certainly in the U.S. and Europe and Canada. KYC stands for Know Your Customer. So in order to open up a crypto trading account or a Bitcoin account with Coinbase, I have to give them my name, home address, driver's license, probably even take a selfie. I haven't done this in a while, but I think they're requiring that now. They're even doing facial scans for some of these crypto exchanges, which is quite scary. You do a facial scan through your computer camera or your phone camera. So they know all this personal information about me, including my birth date, etc. Now let's say I put some US dollars in there, I buy 10 Bitcoin, and then I withdraw them to the same address that I always use because I'm very lazy and I don't know how these things work. So this is the same address that I got paid to in the previous example. So now this Bitcoin address, this BC1 address, is linked to all of my personal information because I gave them my KYC information. I withdrew Bitcoin to this address. So now Coinbase knows that this Bitcoin address is linked to all my personal information. No one else knows this, fortunately, unless there's a hack of Coinbase. And we think that can never happen, right? Unfortunately, as we all know, these hacks are happening all the time. So now you have a situation where hackers can go in there and see your personal information. They might be able to try to take your coins, but what's almost even worse, depending how much money you have in there, is they've now linked your personal information to your Bitcoin address. And so if, for example, you have a lot of Bitcoin sitting in that address, a hacker, especially if they've hacked Coinbase, they know your home address, they know your age, they know what you look like, they can come to your house and try to extort you out of your Bitcoin. This is one of the terrible things about KYC. It makes these exchanges honeypots for hackers. Another thing Coinbase could do, let's say they normally keep my information private, my personal information, my home address, face, birth date, etc., and my Bitcoin addresses that I withdraw to. But they could also, and exchanges do this, they could also sell my information to what's called a chain surveillance firm, which does sort of what we've been doing here at a very high level. They study the blockchain and they try to figure out who owns what. So the thing about Coinbase is we know that they do this not because they've told us that they sell the information to a chain surveillance firm, but because they actually bought a chain surveillance firm and incorporated it. It's now called Coinbase Analytics, and they actively provide their services to the U.S. federal government. Now, this is something, if I'd been paying attention, I would never, ever have used Coinbase to buy my Bitcoin. So if we merge these two examples, we can see that, let's say I buy the Bitcoin on Coinbase, I withdraw it, I do the spending to this dark web market for something illegal, and Coinbase is actively supplying this information to the U.S. government. I don't know if it's on a need-to-know basis or they're just constantly selling it to make money. But now we have the U.S. government knows, they know how much Bitcoin I own, at least at that particular address. They know my personal information that's linked to that address. And they now know that I've been buying stuff, illegal things on the dark web, thanks to my reusing the same Bitcoin address and also buying KYC Bitcoin. Again, I would never have used a regulated exchange like Coinbase to buy the majority of my Bitcoin over the past 18 months if I had understood these things. But all the regulated exchanges, at least in the US, are no better. Coinbase might be slightly extra evil because they do a lot of this chain surveillance in-house, but I think regulators are forcing many of these exchanges to do something similar. Kraken, Gemini, Stride, Cash App, PayPal are no better. They're all highly regulated and they need to cooperate with information requests from the government. And even if you delete your account with them, a lot of them are forced to keep this information for 5 or 7 years or whatever it is per government regulations. Now, just for the record, I've never used the dark web to buy anything. This is just a random example. And if we go and look at this, the temporal patterns involved with this address, we can see that there's regularly money coming in and going out. This makes it look like it's almost certainly an exchange address, but it could have been a whale's address. And if this whale was reusing his address in this way, he would run into these problems. So what are ways of dealing with this? Well, the first thing is always use a fresh address for receiving Bitcoin. The other thing you can do is, I should say that the argument against privacy always is, well, I've got nothing to hide. But it's important to remember that just because your actions are not illegal today, it doesn't mean that they're going to be illegal in 10 years. And if we're Bitcoin bulls, as I am, and we believe that the Bitcoin blockchain is going to be around forever, this list of transactions that's on this open ledger of transactions that's on the blockchain and is distributed everywhere, if this is going to be around forever, there are these records of your transactions, and they will also be around forever. Just a very random example, let's say you buy an old piano made with keys that were made from elephant ivory. I don't believe they use elephant ivory anymore for pianos, but there are old Steinways, for example, that have keys made of elephant ivory. Let's say you buy a used one today, and then in 10 years from now, that becomes a criminal offense and you can be hung for it. This is the why you have to worry about privacy, even if you're not doing anything illegal today, because what you're doing today, maybe you make a donation to a particular candidate, and 20 years from now, people look back and are just absolutely horrified by that, even though at the time, 50% of the country voted for that candidate. This could become a punishable offense in the future. Again, there's the same problem with US dollar donations, but the Bitcoin blockchain is forever, and there are many people actively surveilling it. Bitcoin is not anonymous. This is a myth. It is pseudonymous, so you don't put your name on there. There are no accounts on Bitcoin. They're just addresses and UTXOs. Your name and ID and birth date and the picture of your face are not inscribed on the Bitcoin blockchain. But what happens, as we've seen, is that transactions are monitored. The on-ramps and off-ramps of exchanges are monitored using KYC, and they are used to link your personal identity to your Bitcoin holdings and spending habits. So the main ways you can protect yourself: always use a fresh Bitcoin address when receiving. If you use a wallet that allows you to label these transactions, that's even better, so you can remember where they came from. That's something I need to talk a little bit more about on this channel. The other thing you can do, and what I wish I had done, is I wish I bought all my Bitcoin anonymously and without KYC, without using Coinbase, without using Kraken, without using any of these regulated services. Now, I should say this may not be legal everywhere, so be careful. Make sure you consult a lawyer, and check on the jurisdiction where you happen to live. I have done some checking. I do believe that this is legal in the U.S. At least it's legal now, but check with a lawyer to be sure. This is not legal or investment advice, obviously. This is not something that I'm currently comfortable putting on Bitcoin. Putting how to buy anonymous or non-KYC Bitcoin. It's not something I'm comfortable, for these reasons, putting on YouTube at the moment. But it is something that I cover on my private site under my course, the Big Ultimate Guide to Bitcoin, where I talk a lot about the theoretical underpinnings of Bitcoin, why it's so volatile, why it is highly secure. And I also currently have 4 lectures how to buy Bitcoin anonymously without KYC, not using Coinbase or any of these well-known exchanges. So if that's something that interests you, if you want to augment your current Bitcoin stash, KYC Bitcoin stash, with some non-KYC or anonymous Bitcoin, in these lectures I show you how to do it. If you join Trader University, of course, you get access to all my trading lectures. I'm not focused too much right now on momentum stocks, but there is still good money to be made there. I have my flagship course, Learn How to Trade Stocks Like a Pro, where I'll take you from A to Z, even if you don't know anything about trading stocks. I have some more advanced courses. For example, Momentum Stock Secrets is a very advanced course for momentum traders and trend followers. Also courses on how to use options to leverage your returns, how to use futures, how to make money with IPOs. If this is something that interests you, and if you want to get access to learning how to buy Bitcoin non-KYC and anonymously, you can just click on the link in the description notes below. It'll take you to this page. You can click on any of these boxes to see the list of lectures involved. And then if this is something that interests you, you can scroll all the way to the bottom, click Get It Now, and that'll take you to the checkout page. Access to everything, all my courses, including how to buy Bitcoin anonymously, is just $125 for 30 days access. But I'm going to give you a special price since you've listened this far in the video. If you just go down here where it says have a coupon code, click and type in YT, capital YT as in YouTube, 99, and then click the update button. That will take $26 off, so you get access to everything, including learn how to buy Bitcoin anonymously for just $99 for 30 days. You can cancel after 30 days and you won't be charged again. There are no long-term contracts or anything like that. But I am constantly adding new lectures, and I'm working on some very important Bitcoin lectures that will be added to this course in the coming weeks. I hope to complete some of them over the Thanksgiving break. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.